AP Technology Week panel discussion revolved around several topics relevant to those who work in, manage, or have responsibility for the payments and accounts payable function. These sessions ranged in length from 30 to 50 minutes and were packed with useful information. But I realize, sitting and spending a week's worth of 1 hour might be a lot. So we've got the highlights from these sessions in case you missed them. Hey guys, I'm Mary Schaefer, founder of AP Now, host of the AP Now podcast and YouTube channel. And let's get started with the first session we ran, which was a session on fraud. This session began with discussing what are some of the biggest innovations that we've seen in fraud in the last year or two. And when I talk about innovation, usually that means something good, but in this case, it was not something good, it was something bad. Everybody talked about how crooks are finding new ways to wiggle around and take advantage of their prey, if you will. Okay. Then we kind of had some fun a little bit, and it revealed some fun hashtags, including hashtag don't underestimate Gladys and hashtag trust is not an internal control. That last one is really one of my favorites. And then we concluded that panel discussion, if you will, with a discussion on how fast new frauds come on the scene and how critical it is for everyone to stay on top of the new frauds and to make sure that they share all the information about these new frauds with everyone in their company, not just management, but everyone. The next day, we had a panel where we discussed data, technology, and what it means to the careers for those people who work in accounts payable, payments, and accounting. Okay, we started off, each of the panelists gave advice to themselves, if you will, what they wish they knew when they were younger. So advice to your younger self. And some of that was quite interesting. Then we moved on and we talked about how data is in many different places, and that the winner moving forward will be the person who can harness that data that's in disparate different places and come up and use it to make projections that will help the company thrive and grow. Then we moved on to talk about dark data, which presents a lot of opportunities for companies and for organizations if they can figure out how to harness it. And there were some suggestions on how you could do this. And finally, we closed off with a discussion about Excel, because let's face it, in the business world today, how can we talk about data and analytics without talking about Excel? And we talked about the role that we think it will play in the future in careers of our members and our community. Okay, then we moved on, and the next session was a discussion about AP, accounts payable automation, which there's a lot of AP automation products on the market now. And one of the points that was brought up by one of the speakers, I believe it was Matthew Wright from AppZen, is he said, when you're evaluating new automation offerings from various different vendors, you want to make sure that you use different approaches than you might have used in the past if AI is involved, because you want to evaluate that component also. Okay. Then we had a big discussion around the importance of taking into account what your suppliers need when you're selecting a new automation solution. Okay. Because if you ignore the suppliers' needs, you're going to find that the utilization of this wonderful new technology is nowhere close to what you want it to be. And then, as we closed off the panel, each of our panelists, who were experienced professionals, shared advice to those who might be just starting out looking for an automation solution on what they might have done differently if they were just starting out now. Now, before we get to the last two sessions, which were on invoice automation and payments, and the payment one was really interesting. If you like this episode, please give us a thumbs up. And if you loved it, please subscribe. We produce new content for the channel 3 times a week. Tuesdays and Thursdays are devoted to payments and accounts payable issues, and Saturdays are reserved for Wordle. Okay, we then moved on to what I called our CEO panel. And this was because we had 2 CEOs on it. We were lucky enough to have Jamie Radford from the AP Association in the UK and Anand Kale from AppZen. And we talked about invoice automation. Now, we began with a discussion of some of the biggest misconceptions around invoice automation, as well as a look at some of the recent innovations that are appearing in some of this technology. Then we moved on and we had a very realistic discussion about automation purchases, automation solutions that companies have purchased that are not being utilized as much as they should, and why this is happening and what you can do about it. And then we closed off this session with a discussion on how important it is that any invoice automation solution that you might purchase has the ability to read invoices directly from email and not focus on, changing processes and procedures, because that is going to directly impact the utilization. And then we closed off the week with what I call our payment session. And we talked about a lot of the new payment methodologies that are out there, as well as the existing ones that are used most frequently: checks. That was me with my, constantly giving my thumbs down, but I'm sorry, I'm not a big fan of paper checks. We talked about ACH, P cards, wire transfer, crypto, instant payments. So you can see there was a lot going on. And probably one of the things that stood out to me when Leanne Perkins made the point that crypto payments are not exempt from taxation. As much as we'd like them to be, they're not. So anyone who's playing in that field or thinking about playing in that field needs to keep this in mind. Now, we then moved on to talk about the issue of finality of payment and how important and critical that is when you're selecting a payment methodology to use to make a particular payment. And we closed off the session by talking about some of the new payment options that are coming. And with a special note, I want to warn or alert everyone to keep their eyes out for the offerings coming from the Federal Reserve, FedNow, which is coming in 2023. Now, if you're interested in watching the full session of any of these or all of them, we've got links for them in a playlist. You can watch one each day as you eat lunch. That's what I recommend, just saying. Or you can watch them all at one time if you wish. You can watch one or more right now using the link that will appear momentarily on YouTube and is below in the show notes. And as always, we appreciate your thumbs up, your shares, your subscribes, and your comments. Good luck.